Welcome to video number 3 of this series titled Configuring Windows Server 2008 Services. The title of this video is Server Storage, and the objectives of this video are to set up a RAID 1 mirror on our DC01 server and to set up a RAID 5 storage array for our server data on our DC01. I'm your host once again, Simukai Musiwa, for Varsity College Pretoria on behalf of the Independent Institute of Education. Now, one thing unique about this video series is that we're going to be as practical as possible wherever possible. Obviously, there are limitations in using virtual software in how practical we can become, okay? But wherever possible, we'll try to implement what we can practically as if it was a real network environment. So what I want to do in this video, basically, we want to configure the storage of DC01. Currently, our DC01 is running on one drive, okay? So when you go to my computer, you are going to pick up a C drive only, okay? But as we know that in a real server environment, servers use a more complicated storage arrangement, okay? So basically what I want to do is this here. I'm going to configure RAID. By this point in time, I'll expect that you have got some decent understanding of RAID. I won't be covering the theory as I'm mainly focusing on the practical implementation, and I hope you pick up the theory aspect of this implementation in class. Okay, so basically this is what I want to do. Currently our system only has a C drive, okay? I want to add an additional drive and create what is called a disk mirror, okay? RAID 1. I want to create what is called a disk mirror for our operating system, which enables our operating system to become fault tolerant, okay? And then for all the server data, I want to implement what is called RAID 5, disk striping with parity, okay, which has 3 disks and will store all of our server data on our RAID 5 disk array, which requires, as you can see there, 3 disks. So 3 disks for the RAID 5 and 2 disks for the RAID 1, okay? RAID 5 offers you faster read access and slower writing access because you have to write data and parity. So this is the main task that we are going to try and achieve in the duration of this video. I want to emphasize again, you will not really implement RAID within a virtual machine. Why? Because a virtual machine is logical, okay? This will apply if you were working on a physical machine, but I want to do this for the sake of showing you the capability of Windows Server 2008 software when it comes to implement what we call software RAID, and I hope you do understand the difference between software and hardware RAID. Okay, I am back on my virtual machine manager sitting on DC01. As you can see, it's currently powered off. It is currently powered off. What I'm going to do next is equivalent to taking my additional hard drives that I have bought and inserting them into the virtual machine itself. And this is how we actually create that situation of inserting extra disks. As you can see, my storage configuration, I currently have one disk of 25 gig attached to my SATA controller. We want to add an additional 4 disks, one to create a mirror with the operating system C drive, and 3 disks to create a RAID 5 array. So this is how you add virtual hard disks to your virtual machine. I've selected the DC01. I'm going to click on settings and go to storage. Okay, what I like doing, I like adding an extra controller. Okay, an extra controller. I will click on this little icon and add a SCSI controller. Okay, so I've inserted an extra controller in my physical machine if it were physical, and now I want to add an additional hard disk. I'm going to create a new hard disk, a VDI, which is dynamically located. It will be 25 gig in size. Remember that a mirror drive must have the same size, okay? So it'll be 25 gig in size. So I'll call this mirror. I'm going to redirect this to the location of my virtual machines. If I go to computer, my virtuals in DC01, I'm going to add an additional hard disk for my mirror. I'm going to create this, okay? Obviously this will not be the best setup, but this is a virtual machine. Take note, in a real physical machine you will have hardware provisions to perform hardware RAID as compared to software RAID. Okay, I'm going to add my 3 disks for my RAID 5 array. I'm going to create a new disks, VDI, dynamically located. Let's make these a bit smaller. I won't need that much space for my test environment. Let's just say 5 gig for each of these. Okay, and let's just call this HDD1. Okay, I'll redirect again that to my hard disk location, my VDI location, virtuals in DC01. I'm going to save it in there. I'm going to create. Create offline. I'm going to create an additional 2 disks so that I have 3 disks. And I'll see you after I finish creating those disks using the same method. Okay, so what I've went ahead and done offline, I've configured an extra 3 disks that are all 5 gigabytes in size that will form my RAID 5 array, and a mirror that is 25 gig in size that I'll use to mirror with my operating system VDI. Okay, so you can now see my disk storage is now a bit more different from initially. I have got 5 disks, 2 25 gig hard disk for mirroring, and 3 5 gig disks for my RAID 5 array. When we configure software RAID, I'm going to start my DC01 and we can go ahead with the configuration. Here I am sitting on the desktop of my DC01 and it's time to configure my disk storage. Question to all the students out there: what tool is used to configure disk storage in Windows Server 2008? Any takers? Any answers? That's correct. You guessed it right. The disk management tool. How do you open the disk management tool? Disk mgmt .msc. Okay, to take me to my disk management tool where I'll be able to configure my new disks. Okay, I'll take you meanwhile to my computer to prove to you that currently you only have a C disk. Okay, we only have a C drive, and we want to configure a mirror and a RAID 5 and a RAID 5 array. I'm sitting in the management console of my disk management, and you can see my new disks that have been added to this computer. Okay, you can see disk 1, disk 2, disk 3, and disk 4. These are the new disks that I've added, so it's now time to configure these disks. Currently, they are all basic disks. So what I'm going to do is this here. I'm going to put all of these disks online. I'm going to put all of these disks online and initialize them. I'll initialize all this disk and I'll select the master boot record as my partition style. We'll be using the master boot record as the partition style. I'll click OK to select all of them. Okay, you can see all of my disks are online. Okay, so what we're going to do is this first. We are going to create our RAID 5 array. We're going to create our RAID 5 array. Okay, from your classes, you should know at this point that a RAID 5 requires a dynamic disk, a dynamic volume, as opposed to a basic disk. So we need to convert these disks into dynamic disks. Okay, so we need to convert disk 3 and 4 into dynamic disks. These are the disks we'll be using for our RAID 5 array. So I'm going to click OK, and they have changed from basic to dynamic. So now I can create my RAID 5 array. A new RAID 5 volume. I'm going to add disk 3 and disk 4. Disk 1 will be used for our mirror. Okay, I'm going to click next. I'm going to assign the next drive letter, that's E fine by me. I'll perform a quick format and I'll call this the server data for the volume label. Okay, I'll click next and finish. Okay, so it should be able to create a RAID 5 array from its resyncing. Okay, to create that RAID 5 array. Automatically just finished the synchronization. Well, that happened when I put the video offline, and you can now see in my computer we've got server data, we've got server data, which is actually a RAID 5 array. We will store all of the server data on a fault tolerant and a disk that is fast in terms of read access. So congratulations for that configuration. Let us go ahead now and configure our RAID 1 mirror for the operating system. Currently our operating system is running on a basic disk. We'll need to convert that to a dynamic disk, and we'll be mirroring it with disk 1. So I select disk 1 and convert both of them to dynamic disks. Take note that the conversion process from basic to dynamic is irreversible, so you'll not be able to reverse that process. Okay, I'll click convert. and I get that warning message I was just telling you about. Okay, so I'll click yes, and the conversion process is going to take place. Okay, my disk 0 and my disk 1 are now dynamic disks. I can now create my disk mirror by clicking on the C disk and saying add mirror. The only mirror available is disk 1. I click add mirror, and I am now creating my RAID 1 volume. I'm now creating my RAID 1 volume. What's going to happen is going to take time synchronizing. I'm going to pause the video, and soon as the synchronization is done, we're going to come back and see the effect of what we have just achieved. Offline, my disk 0 and disk 1 have went ahead and synchronized completely to create that RAID 1 mirror that we were talking about. As you can see, the color index that's brownish in color, and the color index for your RAID 5 is a bit different. So I've got my RAID 5. You can see that both of these disks are fault tolerant, and both of them do have disk overhead. We'll not be able to use all of the space. Why? Because these disks for fault tolerance comes overhead. I will only be able to use 50% of my RAID 1 and 33% of my RAID 5. So you can see that we have successfully configured RAID. I'll go to my computer, and you can see that for my server data I have got a 10 gig RAID 5 disk being represented as disk E, and a 25 gig RAID 1 represented as disk C. My server system is now fully fault tolerant. In this video, we set up a RAID 1 mirror for the server operating system, and we managed to successfully set up a RAID 5 disk array to store all of our server data. I would like to thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we go ahead and start configuring Active Directory.